Hi guys, I just wanted to pop on here to kind of discuss some of my new pen acquisitions. It's a new pen day. There's clearly a lot of them. These are all Chinese pens that I'm going to discuss today, and I'll be comparing them with some other pens that I have in terms of like size, weight, and then I'll do a writing sample at the end. So let's just get into it. This one is the new Moonman or Mahjong, although it says Moonman on the cap here. B25, and I have it in the fine nib actually. So as you can see, it looks like a dead ringer for the Parker 25, and it's just a lightweight pen that posts, and it's actually quite decent to write with. I do find that this is a little bit leaky. I'm not too sure why. It might also be because I have Emerald de Chivor in here, and that sheening ink tends to get everywhere, so it could be a user error. But I like this pen. I think it's quite good. I'll do a writing sample at the very end. This is the Hongdian H3. This is supposed to be similar to the Muji pen. I personally don't own the Muji pen, so I can't comment too much between the two varieties. I have it in an extra fine nib. It's got a little bamboo motif that's super cute. It also is designed to post in the back. As you can see, there is a ring that fits perfectly, but it does not post securely. As you can see, it's kind of rattling around and it's already disengaging from the base of the pen. So I wouldn't actually post it, and I don't normally post my pen, so I don't really care about this. But if you're a poster, then this is something to look out for. It is extremely lightweight, probably good for long writing sessions. There is a big step down here. My hands never go all the way to the top, so I usually hold it down here near the base of the grip section, so I don't usually have an issue with this. But if you tend to hold really close to the top, then that's something to look out for. Next, I have the Hongdian C3. There are going to be a lot of Hongdians in this video. They had sort of a super sale going on recently, so I bought a bunch. And this is another snap cap pen. I got this in the fine, and it has a matte finish. The drawings are slightly raised, so you can feel them when you run your finger across, and it posts securely. Overall, this pen is a good weight. I would say this is actually really similar to the Pilot Metro, which I'll compare with it now. So as you can see, they're about the same size. The Hongdian is definitely heavier than the Metro. The Metro is a lot lighter. It is also slightly slimmer. And I guess I should have also compared these two. So this is a platinum pocket. They don't make it anymore. I have this one in the, 18K gold nib. And unlike the Moonman, this one actually you have to post it in order for it to be large enough to write with. At least for me, I have pretty big hands, so posting it on something this small always helps. Next, I have the Banju Shark, and I got this because it looks like a shark. And what else looks like a shark? The Jinhao shark, right? So it's kind of like, now it has a sister. This is a twist cap. I have this in the fine. On their nib, it has their logo, which is also on somewhere on their pen. Oh, on the cap, very end right here. And this one takes standard cartridge converters. I would say that a lot of these pens do. I have found that the Moonman does not. The other Hongdians also do not. But this one does. This one actually takes a standard converter. Normally they're a little bit too big. The little, I guess, the nipple of the feed just is too big for an international standard cartridge, but that one takes it. And then next we have the Jinhao 10. This is obviously a copy of the, or a dupe of the Pilot Vanishing Point. I personally really don't like the Pilot Vanishing Point, but I heard so much hype about this pen that I kind of had to get it just to see what the fuss was about. It is very satisfying, the click, just like the Pilot Vanishing Point, but I don't know. I'll talk about it in the writing sample. It's like, it's balanced, it's not too heavy, it's fine, it's not slippery at all, the grip. This part, I don't really mind having the clip in front, but it does force you to hold your pen like this. Like if you held it like this, it'd dig into your knuckle. So yeah. Next, I got this pen, and this is from Lan Bito. That's what it said, at least on the box and on other parts of, like, for example, on the nib. Wait, actually, no, it doesn't say on this nib, but it said it on somewhere on this pen. But the cool thing is, this one came in a box. It had 2 cartridges as well, and it came with a spare nib in the back here. It's supposed to be this spaceship themed sort of pen. I took it out because it's rattling too much, but the reason why I bought this is because I don't like twist caps. I really like magnetic caps or friction caps, and what I find is this is actually quite satisfying. It's a magnetic cap. If you take a look down the barrel of the cap, you can see that there's a magnet at the end, and it magnetizes to this metal bit here. So very satisfying. I would actually say it is maybe more satisfying than my Visconti Rembrandt in the Ecologic, which, oh, don't mind the gunk. That's just, it's still right. It's just, this ink is not well behaved in this pen. So it's a similar sort of mechanism for both of them. Next, we have the 1866 Max from Hongdian, and I didn't even take off the protective film yet on this. I will later. It has a decorative finial up at the top, and the wood here is ridged, so it's very similar to the Graf von Faber-Castell Tomatillo. It's got a number 6 nib, and I have it in the fine. Next, I got another pen that's very, very similar, right, to the one that we just saw. However, this one doesn't have any branding whatsoever on it. I mainly got it because A, it was a snap cap, and B, it's supposed to be a naginata nib, or like a long knife, long blade nib. So it's supposed to write a little bit like an architect, which I'm really excited about. I don't normally like fine nibs, so a lot of these pens actually are going to get switched out to like a medium or a broad, or I'm going to see if different feeds and nibs can slot into their nib unit. But this one, I don't think I'll have to do that because it's already quite broad, or it's supposed to be quite broad. This is the Natami Warship. It's such an odd name. It actually came with a case, which I'll grab right now. This is the case. It is faux leather, and it just says Natami on it. It's quite cute, actually. So this came with that, and it is a vacuum filler. And I don't have any vacuum filler pens. I prefer cartridge converter because I don't like having to clean up my pens in a really difficult way. A lot of times with pistons and etc., you have to disassemble the whole thing. And yes, you get a better clean overall with that, but it's just so time consuming. And I'm lazy, so I don't want to do it. So I got this one in a extra fine, I believe. It doesn't say actually on the nib what it is, but I am assuming it's extra fine. It writes finer than the other fines, not as fine as a pilot fine though, even though it is supposed to be an extra fine. And this one, let me check if it posts. Ah, yeah, it posts. Well, not overly securely. And then next we have, oh, that's an annoying thing about this pen. It like moves a lot because there's no roll stop on it. This is the Hongdian A6 pen, and it is their skeleton pen. This is actually quite fun. And I actually like this design more than the Laban, just because it's a little bit more intricate looking and less abstract. Like here you can see that it's kind of like little arrows or stars that are kind of flying everywhere, kind of like a firework. I also have this in a fine, and this is a piston filler. One thing to know is that if you're kind of rough with this pen, you will break it. I broke this within the first 5 minutes of getting it, just because I turned too much on the knob here on the piston. And now if I were to unscrew it, there's ink in it, so I won't do it now. But if I were to unscrew it, I've basically wedged this top part where it's supposed to move it up and down. I've pulled out the part that needs the wrench tool to pull out the entire piston section, so the whole thing kind of flies out and it defeats the purpose of the piston fill. But what I did do was I managed to get it all the way down to the bottom, as low as it'll go, and then I just take off the nib. I just unscrew the nib and then I eyedropper it. And I like eyedropper pens, so this was not an issue for me. So next, I think we'll go into a quick size comparison. So you can see all these pens laid out here. I already showed a few of these earlier, but then you have the Pilot Metro, the little platinum pocket, the Jinhao Shark, the Rembrandt from Visconti. I've got an arrow here from Diplomat, and then I also have a rote ring core. So this is kind of like the size of a marker, and you can see that all these pens are kind of decently sized. These two are definitely the most narrow, but everything else is pretty standard actually. So nothing extra large, nothing extra small other than these two over here. And I would say actually this one is not that small, so only this one in terms of the grip section being smaller. And next I'll go into a writing sample. So I wanted to compare it to some pens that I already have. So let me just zoom in here. All right. So here you can see different writing comparisons. First, I have the Pilot Metro in F, then I have a Rotring Core in M, and then I have a Leonardo in M, a Diplomat in Broad, and then I also compare it with an Opus 88 in Broad. I have a Yovo nib in Double Broad, and I also have a Tibaldi pen in Double Broad. So we can compare all of these to here. So the first one that I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it from the rotation that we had. So starting with the Moonman, and I have this one in a fine. So I would say this one is in between the medium and the fine. Next we have the Hongdian. H3, and I have this in an extra fine. I would say this one is actually comparable to the Pilot fine, and it is definitely less fine than the Moonman above. There is also a little bit of line variation here. Its nib is slightly flexible. I would say it's a little bit like a soft EF, so you can push it a little bit. Next I have this one, the C3. And this one I have it in the fine. Oops. And this one's quite stiff, the nib. It feels like a standard steel nib, really hard, not much give at all. I would say that this fine is slightly, just a hair touch thicker than the Moonman fine. And it is getting closer to the medium. Then next I have the Banju Shark. There's a little bit more feedback on this pen, but it's like a pencil. So it's not scratchy by any means. And I have this also in the fine. I would say this is like a dead ringer for the Moonman. Then we have the Jinhao 10. This pen has very little feedback, but it feels like I'm taking a toothpick, like a blunt toothpick, and I'm scratching it on glass. So it's not like it's smooth and super, wet and juicy and nice. It just kind of feels like I'm scratching glass with wood. It's a weird feeling. I don't know. I don't particularly like it. And I also have this in a fine. It could also be the ink that I have in this. I have the Sailor Studio 160, and it tends to run a bit dry for me. This is similar to the extra fine from Hongdian. I find that also a lot of people have said that the Jinhao 10 has a little bit of like softness and flexiness to it. I don't get that at all. My pen, there's like no line variation, as you can see. But I heard that maybe the extra fine, you get that a little bit more than the fine, and I have this one and not the extra fine. So next I have this like Lambito one. So I have no idea what's it called. I think it's just called like a space pen or something. So I'll just call it space pen. And I have this in the EF. And this one's actually way wetter than I expected. I normally don't like these sorts of nibs that kind of like go halfway here, like sort of like the Lamy nibs. I don't like the way that they write, but this one is pretty nice actually. And I also like this fidgety bit. Next, we have the 1866 Max. Oops. 1866 Max. I have this in the fine. And you can see very wet writer. This pen is nice. It's a little bit finer than I expected because I have some other Hongdian fines that have this nib, this like number 6 nib, and they write a little bit thicker than this, so I'm surprised. It might be the ink that I have in here, which is the Kyo Iro Stone Road of Gion. But that ink is normally really, really wet, so I'm not sure what's happening. Next, I have this like unknown pen, and yes, this is super wet. I'm just gonna, I think it's called long knife, long blade. I like this one a lot. It writes more like my broads, which I enjoy. Is that kind of in between a broad and a medium, actually. I like this. It's super wet. There's a little bit of line variation. It kind of feels like I'm writing with like a brush. And this pen wasn't expensive at all. I just kind of searched up long blade pen or long blade nib, and then this sort of came up to the front of the page, and it was just a regular pen that already had it in, so I didn't even have to install it into any other existing pen that I had, which is great. Next we have this one, the Natami. I believe it was Warship, right? Warship in the extra fine. And it is very fine. It is comparable to this one up here, the Pilot Metro. I will probably switch this out. I'm pretty sure, although I haven't tested it yet, that this nib should be compatible with a Yovo number 6, and I have a couple of those double broads lying about, so I will probably switch it in for this. I'll pull out the nib and feed, and I'll just stick in a new nib. Next and last, we have this one over here. So this is the Hongdian A6. And I have this in the fine. And just like the one above, it writes really wet. I would say that when I was trying it out earlier, actually this one wrote a lot wetter than this one over here. So I'm assuming that there were some QC issues. But now that I'm looking at the two next to one another, it seems about the same. So maybe I just like this pen better, so I think that it writes wetter and thicker and all of that other stuff. And then I don't like this pen as much, so I'm saying that it's drier and it's more thin and I don't like the writing experience. It could be that. So that's about it. Here are the comparisons again, and here are the pens. All right, thank you for watching. Bye.